the world you're going into is changing so fast for us who are already in it. For you, it's going to be like getting, hit with a car, right? And I think people who are in it right now, who are not really paying attention to these changes, you may wake up in not the too distant future and go, oh my gosh, like the rug's kind of been pulled out from under me.
Here calls your name, where the steel meets the soil and the fire fuels the flame. We stand on the edge of tomorrow's fight, holding the line through the day and the night. Full spectrum frontiers, riding hard, standing tall, from the heart of the people to the rise and the fall. Full spectrum frontiers.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Full Spectrum Frontiers. I am your host, Ben Tanton, and today we sit down with Preston Zeller. I'll let him introduce himself, but, he's got a pretty good, diverse background. But Preston, tell us who you are, what you do, and where we can find you.
Yeah, Bennett, thanks so much for having me on with you. My name is Preston Zeller, and I'm really an entrepreneur and an artist, and I've been in and around that my whole life. Also a product developer from the standpoint of being an entrepreneur and using cutting edge technology to find useful applications for especially our modern AI tools, and then beyond that. And then I weave that in from a faith perspective too. So that's been a very interesting journey. And I think a lot of what I've strived to do over the years, especially since I went through the loss of my brother in 2019, is just how do I integrate the things I've learned from that into just approaching life differently, business differently, my family, all those types of things. So I'm a very introspective person at the end of the day. And as you and I were talking about before we got on here, is just I like learning a lot of different things too.
Yeah.
I'm okay with being, challenged on knowing something and thinking I know it. It's sort of like the strong opinions held loosely type of deal. So yeah, and I live in a Phoenix area in Arizona and Mesa, and I'm husband, father of 3 kids. So that all those things fill up my life pretty bountifully. Yeah.
Stay pretty busy.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Awesome. Where can people find you? What's the best place?
Yeah. So LinkedIn is where I'm kind of most active, but I have an Instagram and X and that kind of stuff. And then my main company, which is really just I call it a venture studio, but it's where I incubate my ideas. It's called Zellerhaus, ZELLERHAUS.com, and you'll see like different products and ventures I'm working on out of there. And then my film, which we may or may not talk about, but that's called The Art of Grieving.
Mm-hmm.
So that's on Amazon and
we'll
Apple
get there
TV and stuff. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I have all sorts of like different publications in different spots. Music I've written that's on Spotify under a moniker too, but you can go search that out if you want. So yeah.
Amazing. So you've going through your bio and everything, you've built companies and you've worked on growth systems and you've created work around grief and meaning, right? For you though, what ties all of that together?
Oh man, good question. I think prior to losing my brother, which I lost him to an accidental drug overdose. But
in 2018, you said, right?
2019, yeah, early 2019. And prior to that, I was like a lot of people, where I was just searching for meaning and justification in my work. And I mean, I also had a young family, so it was like, I'm gonna scratch and claw my way to giving my family the best possible, providing that I can. And my wife and I decided early on that she was going to be a stay-at-home wife, and she was going to, raise the kids. And, that's considered very old school today, but
It is.
that's how we wanted to operate. And so she's never had to work, which is awesome in the 14 years we've been married. And
Oh,
but
she does plenty of work. It's just
well,
not.
yeah.
Yeah.
Work in the way most people think about it. But yeah,
Yeah,
people staying at home with the kids is a crazy job in and of itself, which is like
absolutely.
why a lot of people would
My
prefer to
my
go
wife
into
did the
the
same
office.
thing. So
Yeah, and it's and we homeschool too. So anyways, prior to that, that was 2019. Yeah, I'm wanting to provide for my family, but I mean, I went from, kind of consulting jobs and having my own agency and working with other people to being in this really high growth technology startup that was accelerating fast, and going from 30 to eventually over $300 million in revenue. And the day before he passed away, we went through a merger, doubled in size from like 750 to 1,500 employees. And it was like mirror images of our company came together and none of it made sense. So anyways, I, lose my brother. And after the initial memorial that I do the eulogy at, I realized, hey, this isn't going away. And grief is just like all consuming. And meanwhile, like work is all consuming. And I don't care about any of it because it's just full of politics and, things that I
right.
thought I cared about the week or two prior no longer matter. So, I dove really deep into, because I've been an artist my whole life, I've used art in different forms, mainly music and painting, to like process what I'm feeling. So that was just a natural step there. And so over that process of, the documentary and the painting project and all that stuff, I got to really understand myself a lot better, understand my relationship with my brother, what it was, what it wasn't, and really just have a lot more empathy for people. So when I went back into really in like an executive role in 2022, I had a whole different like philosophy on that. I just owned being this like grief, whatever people would have called me, but like a thought leader in grief, you might say. But it was weird because before I got that job, if you looked up my name, and this is still the case, if you go like Google it, it says it's like film producer. So
Yeah.
there's nothing
Yeah, no,
about
it does. You're right.
there's nothing about that goes, this person's like corporate executive or growth,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. It's like, I don't, for whatever reason, Google's really kind of gleaned onto that aspect of my background. And so I owned it. And it was fascinating through the time of being at that company for 3.5 years that I just attracted people going through stuff who needed an ear, and realizing that if you give people a space in your company to feel heard, not just from like the, hey, I can't get this approval done, but like, hey, I'm going through something,
Yeah.
they're going to feel a lot more, I think, allegiance to the other work that gets done there, not just feeling like you're addressing the half the person showing up, which is like the skills you think you're paying them for.
Yeah.
So,
Right. So, I mean, was the path intentional, or did, besides your brother's death, did life just kind of force you into it?
well, grief is interesting, like, and any grief, not just like death. I mean, people go through divorce, some relational loss of an opportunity. You could have different kinds of grief, but whatever it is, it's an opportunity to do something, right? I mean, in one sense, I could have just worked my way through grief in the sense of just going to work and bearing it, which is what a lot of people do. I'd say most
Oh,
people
yeah.
do that. And I understand why they do, because it's really hard work to sit there and go, hey, what, have the existential crisis and actually feel all the uncomfortable, feelings that nobody wants to feel. We're all trying to go to work and project our best image and
Yeah.
not have any problems. And so I was like the opposite, where I'm like, I'm okay being a basket case, and I can't even feel authentic around people unless I can be honest with myself about the intentionally moving through the grief, and I'm going to make sure that the things that work for me, I'm going to put those to use. And I think more importantly than that, it affects the way, you show up in your relationships. And so for me, that was how am I treating my wife? How am I treating my
Mhm.
kids? And for sure there was a part of my grief journey where that was not good.
Yeah.
I was either really depressive or angry, and I couldn't stay in that zone. That wasn't an option for me. So
Yeah.
I guess to answer your question, in some ways it was like, yes, force, but also, every reaction we choose is a choice. So, what is that for you?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So to kind of transition into entrepreneurship a touch,
Mhm.
you've said most businesses aren't failing because of demand, but because of broken systems. So
Yeah.
what does that actually look like under the hood?
Yeah. Well, I mean, one is just like inefficiencies,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh
you,
my
you
God.
have,
Yeah.
and, and oftentimes I find like the inefficiencies, there's some amount of it that gets looked over because, hey, it's not a big enough problem to fix. But to some degree, you create a culture of like, hey, inefficiencies are just like okay here. We're
Mm,
gonna, like, they stack on, sort of like
yeah.
the leaky faucet to some degree. Um, and so that could be inefficiencies from a like operational perspective of, like one I'll go back to in a previous company was the way we build for certain types of contracts involved 3 people, and it was like
Mm,
it just didn't make any sense when it was totally solvable through a workflow. You just needed to put in some of the effort. But the other aspect of the systems could be like, well, how are you communicating and getting buy-in from people throughout the organization in terms of their connection to what moves the company forward? And so oftentimes people's bonuses are a trickle down of that. But at any rate, people want to, I think, generally understand the work they're doing and how it's tying to that bigger purpose. So, I mean,
mm,
that could be an inefficiency of itself. And I've run like OKR and MBO type programs at my last company as well. So, I mean, those are a couple things, and even down to understanding why you're making decisions and
yeah.
helping people understand that as well. I mean, in many ways it's just like it's communication at the end of the day, and
Yeah.
what's the culture around that, so which
Yeah.
is usually dictated by the way a CEO operates, um and how they're able to kind of maybe not like make everyone else feel as freaked out as they might be.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
those are some things that come to mind with that question.
So, with that being said, inefficiency, if we zoom out,
Mm.
how much of the economy, in your opinion, is running inefficiently without realizing it?
Well,
I know that sounds kind of broad, but
the
you
the
know,
the well, I mean, goodness, if you go to like a governmental level,
well,
so
I
maybe
don't even have to
90% of
talk
it.
about that. Yeah, yeah, right, exactly.
It's just like we could the whole Doge thing, it's in the name there what they were doing. Okay, so I mean that's probably actually a very big reason, at least in the US, right? I mean, you go back to what our founding fathers intended was a very, very small federal presence
Hmm.
and letting the states manage things themselves.
Yep.
And I mean, I think, man, we could go back to just general corruption, which
Yeah.
is, bribery, blackmail. Those are probably the two of the biggest things have messed with our ability to be more efficient. If someone can't be, just out of their role because they're a genuinely bad fit, but instead is being used as a tool to accomplish someone else's means because you have dirt on them, that's just gonna layer cake inefficiency right there. I mean, levels of approval are one. I mean, this is what's so I think, okay, let's go down to like maybe a lower level, because most people would probably agree that government is generally
pretty inefficient.
Pretty,
To say the least, yes.
The poster child for that. I think there's been an interesting movement over the past few years with more and more people, I think, feeling confident pursuing entrepreneurship, because what I could see is around the 2022 time period, you had the interest rates go up, right? Early 2022, you had the interest rates go up. And so we got out of the ZIRP era, the zero interest rate policy era. The interest rates started going up. What I would call is like the handbrake got pulled on the economy. We came out of all this COVID free money printing, all that kind of stuff. And even in conversations I had with other people who worked at VC backed companies, some of them saw the writing on the wall 6 months ahead of time and just did layoffs, 3 to 6 months. And then we saw a lot more of that happen throughout. And the sort of like, we're a family allegiance that startups could use as culture verbiage for a long time, really dismantled. And then you saw leadership at companies start to feel pressure in a way they probably hadn't in years, because the market totally changed for like everyone. I actually have a good friend up in Washington and a big, like contracting company. And he was saying like, even through 07, 08, they were fine. And past like couple years has been pretty janky, like first time in 25 years that he's seen it as bad as it is. So all that to be said, I think there's an aspect of people going, wait, what is a job? Do these people actually care about me? It's too like transactional.
Yeah. And
so we go work for somebody, and if you haven't figured it out yet, you eventually will be like, if you're fortunate enough to be in a place where it transcends a job for you because really you're around great people, like awesome. And I'm not saying that doesn't exist, but the incentive for companies to operate in that way, I think has been peeled back. And so employees,
so
there's not the longevity in the relationship of a business is just super jacked.
Yeah.
And so people are going, okay, well, I can create and distribute. What do I need you for?
Absolutely.
And if they can make that happen, like, great, go do it. I mean, not everyone's cut out for that and should, but at the same time, we're definitely at this crossroads of things that is really unprecedented, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, the way I kind of see it is there's this at scale issue, right? That inefficiencies become more than just business problems. They become economic vulnerabilities, right? And you brought up the person, and I'll say personnel. Well, remember back in the day, because you're old enough to remember as well, that we had personnel departments. We didn't have human resource departments. The whole verbiage changed in the 70s, really, the 60s and 70s, really. And all of us as workers became resources. And you also see that there's a direct correlation and congruency to pay at the same time. Instead of pay just slowly always rising, pay is now gone down. And I understand, because things are more, there's processes that have come into play. But at the end of the day, us as humans didn't change, but our mindset did. So instead of being, no matter if you're making widgets or, coming up with content or any of it, doesn't matter what the business does, your leadership is still leadership. And I
Mhm.
think that's what changed.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion. And the way we teach leaders has changed as well, because now everything is just a resource or something, a cog in the wheel. And you stop, even if you don't think you do, you stop looking at your employees as people that live just like you, putting their pants on one leg at a time every single day. Right.
Mm.
And you lose that sight. I think it just drastically changed the entire climate of our economy. And yeah, anyway, that's a soapbox. That's I'm
No,
not gonna
that's
get up on that, but
I don't know at what point this happened too, but it's at some point you also realize that like HR is really there to protect the company at the end
oh,
of the day.
they absolutely are. They're
Eh,
not there to protect you.
right.
Stop it. Stop trying to think that you, and if you're an HR professional listening to this, come
Yeah.
on. You got to look in the mirror and really understand what you're actually doing.
And I feel like most HR people I've talked to, like there's a lot of people who get into HR who are altruistic,
Yeah.
and
But
then
it
they
changes.
go, wait a second, you realize
Who's paying your
that's
salary?
right, exactly, yeah. So,
Yeah.
and there's all sorts of things that you manage people out, or whatever
Yeah.
the case may be. If they're going to be a problem, it's like you know, and all the legalities around that. Do you want to pay unemployment or not? I mean, there's games get played, so that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Getting people to resign. It's things like that are just
Yeah.
it
Yes.
goes on, and even like and that is interesting because you can go, okay, well, if there's a toxic person in leadership, but they're more impactful for the business, then we won't take as seriously maybe the
Yep.
claims against them because they're more impactful for the business. So
Mhm.
we'll just find a way to make this
Comes
other
down to
problem go away.
dollars, right?
Huh?
Comes down to dollars.
Yeah, yeah, and that's I think for me that was part of like the grieving thing, Bennett, because I was going through this merger process and seeing how many just wild games were being played up
Yeah.
to the top of you, just everything was it revolved ultimately around money at the
Yeah.
end of the day.
The
And
bottom
like
line.
that's I get it. Money's a tool, but then that when that becomes a thing that's revered, okay,
Well,
well,
you have to look and say, when is enough enough? Like, and I'm
sure.
not a guy that thinks a CEO should make $65,000, right?
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
I'm not that guy. Trust me, not that guy. But I also think that the CEO doesn't need to get a $26 million bonus when the company lost money. Like, that
Uh-huh.
happens consistently all the time.
Yeah.
And I never understood it. It
Or the
blows my
parachute
mind. Right.
payments, that
Yeah.
those kind of
So,
things are pretty
hey,
wild.
he did a shitty job as the CEO, but because he's part of the whatever, you
Yeah.
know, I, and, yeah, that's a soapbox that I get up on quite a bit, but, um, because I am a capitalist. I am.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's levels, and you know, I'm also a firm believer in rising tides raises all ships. So,
Sure. Yeah.
you know, duh.
Well, and it's, like you mentioned some of the it's a devaluing of our currency is really what
Hmm.
it is. And
Yeah.
there's an
Especially the
interesting thing.
printing of money. It's insanity. But
Yeah. And there's an interesting thing if you go back to like when women were encouraged to get into the workforce, right? Like that was supposed to, in some ways, make household income better. It didn't.
I think that's a scam too. And I'm sure you
Um,
kind of believe me as well. But I'm not going to go down that road. Not today. But
Yeah, and it's like partially from the sense of like buying power. The Simpsons was kind of a funny, it's a cartoon, but it was a funny portrayal of this in the sense of like this is like doofy guy Homer
yeah,
who works at a nuclear power plant, and
yes,
the
Yep.
house. You've probably seen this, but like that you you gotta look at the house they have in the cartoon, and then you go look at that house today in like
Yeah.
some part of the Midwest, and you're like, oh, I don't know. Probably wouldn't be able to afford that. I
No.
actually remember I grew up in one of the neighborhoods I grew up in. It was like pretty nice. It was, I'd say like nicer middle class. I don't know if upper, but whatever. But I remember the guy's dad like ran an Arby's,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
they had a nice house.
Yeah. Right.
His mom was a stay at home mom. It wasn't.
I mean,
Um,
I grew up that way too with the stay-at-home type of stuff, but at the end of the day, people can't afford to do that now. They just can't. Some people
yeah.
can, but I think our culture and our society have done everything they can, and I say they have done
Mhm.
everything that they can to dissuade people from doing that
Oh, I
on
would
multiple
totally
levels.
agree. Yeah,
Multiple levels. So,
yeah.
and
It's
I think
actually.
that's by design. That's just my opinion. But
I would agree with that.
yeah,
Well, you go into like family breakdown and stuff like
yeah,
that,
of
but
course.
um, you know, guy, I had some thought that I was just going down, and I blanked on it.
Sorry. I jumped in. You were
No,
talking about The Simpsons uh and you had that the guy
oh,
worked at Arby's.
oh, this was interesting to me. So I remember like going back to that like 2022 time period. There's this like realization I heard within my company, or it wasn't my company, but in the company I was at, within other people companies, where they're like, "Whoa, salaries got a little too crazy. We need to bring him back down." And you're
Yeah.
like, "Bring him back down to what?"
Yeah.
Like we're 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 bringing salaries. I mean, I get you could say some roles in some ways, yeah, got
Of
like
course.
wild, but there's this sort of consensus that hey, everyone was getting paid too much money. We're like, it's not like we were in. I wasn't in
Which is
banking or
totally not
something.
true.
Yeah, you're like, oh, okay. The person who's getting paid 80 grand a year should now be getting paid 65 grand a year. Like
Yeah.
that.
No.
That's
I
I.
I think
Yeah,
a lot of that is, frankly, a lot of that is it's the easiest piece of a business to manipulate.
yeah, right.
It's lazy is what it is. Instead of looking at the entire system and fixing things that are inefficient about your system,
Mm,
it's easy to just get rid of people because, let's be honest, most employers look at everyone's replaceable.
yeah, yeah.
Period.
That's
Because
for
they
sure.
don't build that's back to the HR part. We
Hmm.
don't build relationships with the people that work for us
Hmm.
because that would be too freaking hard.
Yeah.
Maybe not too hard. Maybe I'm just generalizing, but that's what a lot of this is.
Well,
A
it's like
lot
the
of this
too
is
hard in quotes, right? You're
yes,
like, oh, I
right,
can't get
correct.
too close
Too
to
hard.
it. It's like just
Right.
because you ask someone about their family, or hey, what are your life goals, or what did you do last weekend, doesn't mean you also are like getting together with them outside of work all the time.
No, not even a
And
little.
yeah, I think people misconstrue that because it's like if you don't know uh the people who works on your team, like their spouse and kids name,
Something's
that's a
wrong.
pretty table stakes thing.
Yeah.
Ask them about their weekend. It's just like super simple stuff, right?
Yeah. Right.
um so yeah, there's a lot there in the company sense that is, again, just makes people go, man, is this my life?
Yeah.
Do I want to
Because
spend my
everything
life?
that we do in society trickles down
Yeah.
into our workplace and the way that companies and the way that businesses are run and the way that teams are managed. And this all trickles down. So if you don't like the way it's being run, of course, but people don't think like that necessarily. So,
Yeah,
uh,
well, and also like how are you incentivizing people to want to go above and beyond what their job
yeah,
description is,
right.
right?
Absolutely.
It's amazing how many times I've seen where someone is crushing it and it's just like calculus to figure out, should we give them a raise or not? And especially when you go like, hey, we actually, they're responsible for this business. The business went up a lot more. I just, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of a no-brainer, but people don't think this way. I think part of it is it's not taught. It's not part of the it's not part of the formula that's taught to MBAs, and I don't I'm not going to go down that road, but you know
Well,
what I mean?
yeah, entrepreneurship, I think, is a
Yeah,
really
it's a
fascinating one.
different
And
animal.
yeah,
Different
in and
animal.
of itself, because people can stumble into profitable businesses and they are terrible people leaders, but
Mhm.
they either don't get better or don't hire people that are better and maybe have a buffer, like whatever the case is. And so they, like, people can be deceived by the success of a business and thinking that there's this brilliant mind behind it, but that may not be the case. I mean, there's a lot of times I've been up close and working with people who appeared to be successful because of the circle or because of, you know, m- maybe they have made a lot of money, and you go, how did this even happen for you? Like, it doesn't even
Yeah,
make
right.
sense. Um, that's why, that's why actually it's the book of Ecclesiastes, that King Solomon wrote in the Bible, is so interesting
Mhm.
because it almost reads like a modern business book where he's
Yeah,
just so
you're right.
confused. He's like, why do bad things happen to good people and good things happen to bad people? And there doesn't seem to be any point to why there's a randomness to life that is so frustrating. And the second you think you've clutched onto the truth of it, it's like smoke and it just disappears. And, and I'm like,
Yeah,
man, I've felt that so many times. I just like, all right, this, there's a lot about life that's very non-deterministic.
absolutely. Kind of to steer this, we often think of national security in terms of military power, right? Considering
Mhm.
this is a national security podcast, that's what the label I like to put on it. But how much of it really comes down to economic resilience?
Mm. Well, I'm an armchair economist like most people, but I will tell you my last role, I had to get a lot deeper into that because we sold to real estate investors. So I was
Mm,
always looking at the housing economy
right.
and what was going on there, and getting into, underlying rates. And um uh, there's actually a really good book called Spider Network, by the way, if anyone's listening, has to do with how the LIBOR rates were manipulated for a number of years from, guess what, investment bankers. But
Mm,
anyways,
wow, it's
which is
weird.
where we get the Fed rates from, is
Yeah.
the LIBOR rate. Anyways, the the dollar is an interesting one. Creature from Jekyll Island has a really fascinating, breakdown of how we
Great
got to the
book.
central banks. Yeah. Um, but like, we look at these wars, even, right? That we're going to be told they're for one reason or another, and surely you could follow that, but a lot of it has to do with, like, central banks being there or not, and then also, how is the petrodollar being used?
Yeah. I mean, that's that. Yeah. Yes. And you just kind of have to look at our past conflicts over the past 30 years, 40 years, and say why.
Hmm. Well, you go to Libya, you go to the Arab Spring, like all those. um
Iraq, even.
yeah, to my knowledge, those did not have central banks in them.
Nope.
um
And they were all pushing to use something different.
right, yeah.
I mean, I'm going to say it.
No,
It's,
that is exactly what they were doing. They were like, "Yeah, we don't want to be tied to your system." But like, that is it, when if anyone, for any amount of time, it doesn't take very long to sit there and go, "Why does the dollar have value?" Most of it's digital at this point,
Mhm.
but what is it based on? I mean, they don't teach this in school for the most part, right? Like, the dollar was the backed by gold, and at some point you could actually go redeem your money for gold. And then they moved away from that completely, which is what a fiat currency is.
Which every currency in the world is a fiat currency.
Well, yeah, at this point, it's
every currency.
It's confidence, right?
Yes. It's all, hey, we decide that this has value and now we're going to use it to trade because that's what we're doing.
Yeah. And as soon as the confidence on a macro scale really falls, that's where you have, I think, the stagflation and stuff like that. And but anyways, like the U.S. is unique in that way because of the petrodollar that we, of course, other countries exchange their currency into the dollar as a standard, and then they, exchange into the other country's currency, and so we enforce that. And so
essentially,
essentially, and that makes us a force. And I don't think most people probably realize that, in the sense of, they look at headlines on wars and go, oh my gosh, and they get caught up in the cultural things around it, which goodness goes back to the whole psyop of war in general, of,
for sure.
Wow, it keeps us divided and arguing about things, and they're like, laughing at us, while we're totally missing that it's about other things. That's kind of my take on it.
Agreed. So let's kind of shift to AI, since you have an AI company. That's what I would call it, right? So AI is
AI.
I mean, it's being talked about, and I definitely use it like a productivity tool. But it does feel bigger than that. And some of the interviews I've done, there's some really crazy, and I'll say crazy, applications, right? So how do you see it changing the competitive landscape?
Well, yeah. And okay, so I think for one, it's going to depend on, of course, like the vertical you're in,
Of course.
Vertical in the sense of industry, profession, right? My background's a lot in like sales, marketing, and then, of course, the product world as well, and just SaaS. Excuse me. So that's where you're seeing the most like leading edge change right now, is that world, because going back to the 2022 time period, headcount reductions, ChatGPT came online. It's like, do more with less. Here's AI, all that kind of stuff. So marketing and salespeople for sure feeling it. Marketing in particular, I'd say is always, you have to wear so many hats. And it's, I think by contrast to sales, it's one of those roles where it's like the process is kind of more clear to see, and the outcome can be a little harder to define, depending on what aspect of that is. Sales is sort of the opposite, where it's like the process can be very distorted, but the outcome is very clear. You sold X amount of money. So, but it's what is taking away the really grunt operational things that you have to do, and then, making you focus on more impactful work. So that's like kind of eliminating entry level roles or consolidating them. But then you have the ability to understand either your market, how your company runs, things of that nature. So the research aspect in ways that weren't really possible before, or you would have had to have some, outside agency or a crazy budget or whatever the case is.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think there's ways to understand your current business, go into a new venture, and ultimately this is the theme I see, but also being echoed in different places. The AI Daily Brief from Nathaniel Whitmore is a really good podcast for this, but there's just like a chasm widening right now. So you have people who are stuck at companies, and there's probably going to be both of these types of people listening. People stuck at companies where it's like, here's the kid version oven mitts of AI and go play with their kid gloves, whatever they call it.
Yeah, right.
But it is the very like boxed in version of AI, and that's how you can use AI at this company. And then people, oh, okay, well, this is how I'll use it, and they get off work, and that's really all they've
Yeah, they use it like a
done.
search engine or
Yeah, I
something
mean,
like that.
I
Yeah.
was talking with somebody else the other day. They're like, it was an agency. They're like, what are you doing? Are you doing custom GPTs? I'm like, that's old news at this point.
Yes,
Custom
for sure.
GPTs, especially since the beginning of the year. Then you have people like I'd say myself who are finding new applications for it, and they're Claude Code's an integral part at this point to a lot of these kind of narratives. But um, the different shades of that, people doing open claw and configurations there, that's one angle. I don't think you have to be an open claw, but that's one angle. Um, then you have the people who are trying to figure out the agentic layer, and what does that look like to have collaborative agents, and
Yep.
and Claude Code's done a fantastic job of doing releases to get parity with some of these different tool sets, so you're not having to go run an instance of OpenClaw. Anyways, I could go on and on there. There's workflows, blah blah blah. The point being that um, you're you're having to upskill in this like very bizarre way at this speed that I don't think anyone's used to. And so
Yep.
you're either leaning into that, or you're probably just kind of overwhelmed by it, or don't care enough to do it. So the question then becomes in the future, and this is, again, I don't know this for sure. Nobody really does. I don't even think the model companies know. But you have two types of people who are orchestrating, creating agents to do things and manipulate them in ways that is like a very advanced skill set. And then you have people that are just hired into roles to go, okay, here's your operator's playbook, and you just make sure this thing doesn't break.
Right.
And
Yeah.
and so where do you want to be at? And the last thing I'll say there that's really interesting. So I'm mentoring someone from my school right now who's about to come out of the PR program. And I was asking her about it. I was just trying to get a feel for, hey, what are they teaching you? What's your perspective of what the market you're going into, concepts? What are they doing about AI? I was kind of floored to hear some of their answers, because I'm like, it doesn't sound much different than when I went to college.
No, yeah, absolutely.
And I've been
I have
trying
two
to,
daughters in college, and it's unbelievable to me.
and I've been trying to help her. I actually just sent her this like long report last night. I basically took the transcript of the things we've been talking about and her resume, and had Claude do a research report that cited all these different sources to say, hey, here's how the industries you want to go into are changing, and here's how to best position yourself going into the job market, and why it matters, and all these different kind of things. Because that was, at the end of the day, what in my conversations with her is, the world you're going into is changing so fast for us who are already in it. For you, it's going to be like getting, hit with a car, right? Or something like that.
Yeah.
Just brute force. So, and I think people who are in it right now, who are not really paying attention to these changes, you may wake up in not the too distant future and go, oh my gosh, like the rug's kind of been pulled out from under me.
The rug doesn't exist. You're on hardwood, man.
It's
You're
a
on the
magic carpet
hardwood
rug.
Yeah. No, I look at that, and I work for a university, but I consistently always say, I'm like, listen, the stuff that because I did study quite a bit of marketing, and I realized when I got done, which you in sales would have done the same thing, but I was learning stuff that was relevant in like the 90s, like, or the 2000s, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not that way anymore. Like, they're so far behind with certain things. The academics, the humanities, the things like that. This is stuff that doesn't change. It's evergreen content. But for the stuff that is not, universities got to get with it. That's their competitive edge. This is what I keep telling people. Your competitive edge is to be ahead of the competition, or to be at least, curriculum wise, steady with you can be one step behind and still be so far ahead of the rest of the, yeah. Anyway,
Well,
it's
and
wild.
that's an opportunity, I think, for people who want to be entrepreneurial is go
Yeah.
look at industries where it's like they're really far behind. And it's interesting because, if you go back to the original sort of like thought behind what universities were for, it's like it's such like it's hard to really articulate fully how different that time period was, right?
Mhm.
Because it's
Mhm.
before modern transportation and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's just very
And
long ago.
the
And so there's
internet or
yeah, and
anything.
any yeah, anything.
Yeah.
And so we're okay, so then you fast forward to today, and it's like the pace at which you can actually teach anything, that those things are getting outdated. I remember seeing like, a degree in digital marketing. It's like the most laughable thing because this was even 10 years ago. Where I'm like,
Mhm.
at that point, it was like, okay, well, things are changing every 6 months at least on some,
At
pretty
least.
pretty significant scale. And then you have the ad providers who are putting out new weird features, and you're like, oh, cool, the UI just broke on me again. I gotta, figure that out. So, and then there's like now with an AI, you go in a given week, there could be so much change going on
Mhm.
that blows your hair back, right?
Yep.
And then you're like, how is anyone keeping up with this? That's why. Do you know Noah Kagan?
I know
Ever heard
who
that
he
name?
is. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just saw this post actually last night. Yeah, AppSumo. So AppSumo was like a really
Yeah.
early,
Yeah. That was great back in the day. I mean,
yeah,
still, they're doing all right, but
yeah. I mean, it's good for end users. I mean, the
yes.
whole lifetime sale thing is kind of hard, but he just said he hired a COO, but it was a Claude operating officer.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. Because
Yeah.
whether it's that or something else can be at
Well,
the center
it's one of
thing.
those things you're going to have companies that used to have 40 employees that can do the same work now with 10. I mean, it just how
Yeah.
it is. I'm sorry, everyone, but that's how it is.
Well, who one of the Lovable.
Especially if they all know how to use AI.
Yeah, so Lovable is wild in that they just did a big raise. They rose. I guess it was in December. I thought they did a more recent one. Maybe I'm thinking of Replit. Well, yeah, Lovable raised 330 million at a 6.6 billion dollar valuation. But they are how many? It's not a lot of employees. I think it's like maybe 25 employees or
Yeah,
something.
right.
So
Well,
that just
you're
goes
gonna have and I don't think you have it yet, and I haven't found them, but before you know it, you're gonna have $1 billion company that's a solopreneur
right.
before you know it.
And that's the big
It's gonna
the big
happen.
question, right? People think maybe the guy who made OpenClaw is like a shade of that, but I
Yeah.
mean, we don't really know what his deal was with going to OpenAI. But yeah, that's going to be possible. So have you have you heard of this concept, employee-less companies?
I can't say that I have. Like
I, I
maybe,
I
but
think
it
it's a little
doesn't.
fantastical, to be honest, but I tried out one of the services, and this just all goes to speaking to the disruption, freaking everything. But this one guy started from the this is a free plug for him, but he started from the concept of like, what if AI could just do it all, and I'm not even like paying attention to it type of deal.
Right.
And then supposedly kind of reverse engineered that, and now has this service. It's Pulsia, which and that like you put in some information and it'll say, hey, here's a business for you. I'm gonna get going building it and sending emails and all
Oh,
this
okay.
kind of
I
stuff.
know what you're talking about now.
Yeah.
Yes. And you know what? It is I've seen some things where I could totally see that happening. That
Yeah, and it's a little bit like it's really
it's
he's
going to be
selling
very nichey, but
he's selling pickaxes,
yeah, right,
and he's like, go find your fortune, and people are
right,
like, all right,
right. It's
if
wild.
I put on the jeans, I will strike gold. So,
So
anyways,
kind
yeah,
of wrapping things up a touch, though. I want you to touch on Psalm log
yeah.
before we run out of time,
Yeah. So fundamentally, Psalmlog is a place to get 24/7 personalized biblical advice.
which is really cool.
Yeah, no,
But it's one of
thanks.
those things, like, ooh,
Well, the notion of it started from back in January last year. It started from this idea that people keep journals, right? They'll accumulate books full of really valuable personal inventory over years. I've met people that are like in their 60s and they have 40 years of notebooks. I'm like, what an incredible way to be able to, find this through thread for you that may actually help guide you in life in different ways. So it started with that concept of like being able to help people journal and then track and suggest and all this kind of stuff. And doing that in the Christian space. And then what I realized as I did my own research, I just continue kind of like validating, hey, am I on the right path? Am I going to build this? And it doesn't matter. And realized that the problem was not I need to journal. The problem was I know the Bible has an answer, but I spend hours looking for verses or generic devotionals that don't make any sense. So I combine these different, kind of AI concepts to take your exact situation as you share it, and then, attaching Bible verses to it and all this kind of stuff, and then bringing it back to you in a format that is easy for you to like understand your situation in context of scripture. And then not only to get, kind of a clarification in that moment, but over time do that. So that's really the vision behind it. And it's been really cool to see people use it and give feedback and be like, this is actually helping me. And
yeah.
I tried it on myself first.
Yeah,
I was the first
I'm
customer,
gonna really get into it here. I mean, I've got it. It's actually up on my laptop that's upstairs right now. So I just doing research for this.
I
It's
appreciate it.
very intriguing to me for sure. So
Yeah, and I'll make sure I'll send like a discount code your way if you do end up wanting to
awesome.
to try the whole thing. But yeah,
Appreciate
anyone
it.
can go there and try. You can do an entry without ever registering, and then if you want to save the entry and then do more, you get to do that and all that kind of stuff. But I think that the main thing for me, Bennett, is like this is a tool, and I see it filling a gap where we live in a fast-paced world. We're more distracted. And I think people want to engage with the Bible, but like don't know how in many ways. And the answer isn't always we'll just go to church. And so the cool thing about it is like when you onboard, like the app will ask you like, where are you at? So you may not even consider yourself a Christian and want to use it. And that's totally fine. And the app will be able to play things back to you in a way that's a little more friendly to where you're at. But I again, ideally it's in essence making the scripture more approachable for people, whereas it can be intimidating. I mean,
yeah, for sure.
I've had to spend a lot of time with it myself to be like, feel confident going somewhere, but I don't always know either.
Yeah.
So
true story. Preston, I appreciate you coming on, man. Big time. And we'll have to do it again sometime soon.
For sure. I appreciate you having me on. I feel
like we went longer than we normally do, and I'm still cutting it off. So, so my apologies. But
all good.
Yeah, we can definitely do another episode at some point soon.
Cool. So, thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Carry the fire through shadows and storm. Voices of yesterday guiding us on. the echoes of duty, the call we still hear, building tomorrow with courage, not fear. Stand your ground, keep the watch through the night, guarding tomorrow where freedom's alive. Through every trial, the truth will endure. Full spectrum frontiers, steady and sure. From fields of the past to horizons unknown, the seeds that we plant are the future we own. Stories of valor, of lessons we've learned,